Hi, my name's Matt and I'd like to welcome you to this Zinyak video on collaboration and workflow. This is part of our ITIL 4 Create, Deliver and Support course. Now, if you've been following this course all the way through or any of our Prince 2 Agile courses or ITIL 4 Foundation, you'll know that the Agile approach and Agile methodologies, particularly Scrum, are becoming ever more popular across not just IT but across business in general. Organizations are looking to become more agile at all levels and in everything they do. And as a result of that, agile approaches and tools and methods are becoming more and more popular, and collaboration and workflow are part of that, and we're going to look at those tools and methods now. So we've got 6 to look at. The first one, making work visible. So transparency is a key agile principle, making work visible. And really, there's a number of reasons that we want to make work visible. One is it avoids misunderstanding. It avoids rumour and suspicion. Everyone can see the amount of work and how much work is progressing and where the difficulties are. The second reason is the more people who can look at a piece of work, the more likely we are to spot problems early. And I've talked about this before. And it's really the principle. You produce a piece of work, whatever it is, it's an email, it's a document, it's a computer program, whatever it might be. And when you look at it, you tend to see what you meant to be there rather than what is actually there. Whereas if someone else looks at it, they'll see what is actually there and they might spot a problem that you don't. And the more people who look at it, the more they bring different perspectives, different skills, knowledge and experience, and can question you about the piece of work. So that's a really good way of improving the quality of work. Working in topic-based forums. So email can be very useful, particularly in point-to-point secure communication. So if I just want to send one person a message, email's a good way of doing that generally. But the problem with email is if I want to discuss a general topic with a number of people who are interested in it, it's not a good way. Who do I copy in? Do I copy in only the people who told me they're interested or who I want to copy in, but I might miss out someone else who wants to be involved, who could contribute, but I don't know they have skills in the area? Whereas if we create a topic-based forum, we make it clear, we have a title and description for what it is, then anyone who's interested can join it and contribute and gain value from it when they're interested in that topic. If they move on to do something else, then they can cease to interact with the forum and they won't keep getting new emails. And I used this very effectively recently when I was developing our exam prep apps. So I was developing in Swift. I hadn't used Swift before, so I was participating in Swift forums and getting help on developing the apps. But once I'd finished the apps and I'd moved on to producing these videos again, I didn't need to be involved in those forums on a daily basis as I was. I kind of keep an eye on them, but I'm not really actively involved anymore, and I've moved away. And I'm more involved now in communities around producing YouTube videos because that's what I'm doing right now. And you can do the same in your area. So you can be involved in a community when it's applicable to you, and then you move on to something else when you move into a different area. Mapping workflows. So teams and projects utilize a model in which their work is presented and used in a visible format. And by mapping a workflow, often drawing it on a whiteboard, it really helps us spot where there are inefficiencies and where it's ineffective, but particularly inefficiencies and waste. So if there are delays or repetition, or where there's errors are being produced, so it can really help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our workflows. Working in small teams and sprints. So I've spoken about this before. Scrum talks about a development team of 3 to 9 people, and the reason is the number of communication channels between a team is n times n minus 1, where n is the number of people in the team. So if you've got 3 people, it's 3 times 3 minus 1, so 3 times 2, 6 communication channels. But if you've got 9 people, it's 9 times 8, so it's 72 different communication channels. And if you go beyond that, it increases greatly. So working in a small team, the communication is much more effective. And working in sprints, so time boxes, so rather than having a list of work, a list of requirements, and saying we've got to deliver this however much it costs, however long it takes, we just got to deliver this list, we say we're going to allocate an amount of time. So in Scrum it's typically 2 to 4 weeks, but Scrum says 1 month or less, typically 2 to 4 weeks. And we set a time, so it's not 2 to 4 weeks flexibly, we set 2 weeks, or we set 3 weeks, or we set 4 weeks, and then we deliver the maximum value we can in that period of time. And at the end, we've delivered some value, and then we decide what we're going to do in the next sprint and deliver more value. The world might have changed then. So what we thought we'd deliver in the second sprint, we don't. We deliver something else because the world's changed. We've delivered something. We've got feedback. It's a much more effective way of progressing. Using simple feedback mechanisms. Yeah, so we don't need to be overly formal or overly complicated in our communication. And if you try and get too much information from customers, often you end up with nothing, or it just becomes confused. I'm a big believer, particularly in service management, of every time you have an interaction with the customer, basically just saying, was that okay or not? You know, just thumbs up, thumbs down, yes or no, positive or negative, not giving them the chance to say it was okay. Make them get off the fence and just say positive or negative. And having lots and lots of those data points from lots of people is much better than having a lot of data from few people that can distort it and can be difficult to navigate. So using simple feedback mechanism, that really leads on to collaboration in social media features. So again, when we are collaborating, if we're using something like Slack or Yammer or one of those types of social media, business social media tools, being able to like things and retweet and share is a really good way of assessing the value of something. So if when I was using the Swift forums, I would go on there and there'd be a question, I'd type in my query and similar questions had come up, but the answers would be rated. So I could look at the answers where other people had rated the answer highly rather than answers that were rated less highly. So I could go there first. It gave a validity to that answer. And also, the more responses you've got, the more difficult it is for a malign entity to skew it. So one of the issues, online retailers like Amazon have got now is negative reviews, where we've had a problem in the past where organisations were maybe paying people or buying positive reviews, but equally now there's a bit of a problem of people buying or paying for negative or putting on negative reviews for competitors. But that the effect that can have is far less if there's many responses. So if you've got one negative in 10, that's really quite significant. If you're one negative in a million, it's not that significant, and it can have a big problem for organisations. I went to to a restaurant in Paris a couple of years ago, and I'd found it on TripAdvisor. And it was for my daughter's birthday. We're in Paris on holiday. It was my daughter's birthday. We picked the restaurant because it was rated highly on TripAdvisor. And when we went to the restaurant, the air conditioning in the restaurant was broken. It was midsummer, 28th of July, and it was really hot. And I left a review, and I left them a good review. You know, everything I said. The food's really good. Unfortunately, I had the problem with the air conditioning, but they did have fans and they'd done what they could. But I felt I couldn't give them 5 stars, yeah. So I gave them 4 stars, but left them a good review. And I got a call, I got a message contacted by the restaurant saying, "Why have you left us such a bad review?" And I was like, "I haven't. I've left you a good review. Go back. Did you not read it? Go back and read it. It was a good review. It was an honest review." I told them, pointed out the problem with the air conditioning, but it was an honest review. And he came back and said, "Oh yeah, I've read it now. Yeah, it was a good review, but you've given us 4 stars. Nobody reads the review; they just look at the 4 stars." And I felt it was a legitimate review. It was honest, but I could see it from their point of view because just one review, my one review being 4 stars rather than 5 stars, had taken them from being, they were kind of either the top or certainly the top 3 restaurants in Paris on TripAdvisor, and it had taken them out of the top 10. Just one review, so it had a big effect. So having lots of reviews, lots of data points definitely helps with that issue. Tools and capabilities designed to resemble interfaces that the user is familiar with, including communications walls, so very popular in Agile, particularly using Kanban boards to measure and predict flow, but team boards, so putting things up on the wall so information is visible and accessible by everyone, and they can pull information. So it's a means to enable people to pull. So people need to go to the wall and look at it to get the information, but it's there, it's available. Topic-based forums and folders. Again, I talked about the advantage of having topic-based forums, so we can communicate when we're interested in that topic, when we've got something to add. But again, having folders where we can store data related to that topic, really useful. Event surveys. So support software usually provides the capability to gather instantaneous customer feedback via a survey, but you do need to be careful about the survey. If it's a genuine requirement that you need to ask a number of questions, and you can't just go yes or no, positive or negative. If you to get the information you need, you're going to have to ask a lot of questions. Ask them in batches, i.e., don't have 50 questions and the customer user starts answering them and gets halfway through and gets bored and then just gives up. I do that all the time. Yeah, I do that all the time. Survey, because I do this job, I tend to answer more. I'll answer surveys because I want to see how well the organisation is managing the survey process. But if they just have lots and lots of questions and they're not interesting to me, even I'll give up. So if you have them in batches, so ask maybe up to about 10 of your most important questions, and then ask the customer if they're prepared to answer some more questions, and then ask them another question, 10, and then ask them if they're prepared to answer some more questions, and then ask them another 10. But prioritize it. So don't just group the questions kind of logically in, oh, we want some information about this, we want some information about this, we want some information about this. Make sure the ones you answer first are the ones you're really interested in, because you may never get to the later ones. So do be careful in terms of how you structure and create your surveys. Portals, actionable portals for requesting services. Yeah, so I used this yesterday. Our garden refuge was due to be picked up on Friday. The people who were due to come pick it up didn't pick it up for some reason. So I went onto the council's portal and I could go on there and say, look, we missed a pickup. My bins were out Thursday night. They were still there Friday morning, so they were out the whole 24 hours of Friday. It's not my fault. Please come and pick them up. And I was able to go on there and request that survey. So it's a particularly useful way for the customer, but also for the service provider. So in this case, my council, they tell me what they need to know. What was the day when you were due to get your bins picked up? What's your postcode? What's your house number? So they can validate that. So they know what information they need and they can request it. Whereas if I just send them an email, I might not include all the information they need. Then they have to reply, asking for that information. Then I have to reply. So it's less efficient for me, less efficient for them. Having a portal, I go, it says what information they need, I provide it. Again, if you're going to make information mandatory, make sure it really is mandatory, because if you've got 10 fields, you make them all mandatory, and the user gets there and goes, yeah, okay, yeah, field A, I don't have an answer to that, but it's mandatory. I've got to put something in, but I don't have an answer for whatever reason. I'll make something up. And then you can get bad data. So if you're going to make something, if something is mandatory, it's got to be mandatory. Make sure, give the user as much help as they need to find the answer. So in IT situations, if you need to know things like what client device is, how much memory it's got, how big the disk drive is, what their broadband is, any sort of technical information, don't assume that the user knows how to find that information. Make sure you tell them, or better still, give them the option of maybe downloading an agent that'll go and find it out and report back to you. Yeah. Now they may choose not to use that agent. They may say, "Well, I don't want to use an agent. I'll do it," but make it as easy as you can for them to give you that information. Self-help. I've spoken about this before. It's obviously great from the service provider's point of view because it's cheaper, but also from the customer's point of view, the customer feels they're gaining skills, knowledge, and experience, that they know how to do things. And I had a great example with my website provider where I was trying to make a change to the website. I couldn't quite work out how to do it. I requested that not just that they did it, but they told me how to do it. And they basically made the change, but videoed themselves making the change and sent me the video or sent me a link to the video. So I could then gain that knowledge, but also obviously they've then got a video that they can share with other users or make available on the frequently asked questions area, so other users can see how to do that particular thing. And social media functions, collaboration tools that provide simple and effective means for users to respond and provide feedback. So like buttons and so on. You might even get a like button on. I was going to say you might get a like button on Twitter. It's not that, is it? You just can't change an edit button on Twitter. That's just like, well, that's interesting actually. So do think about that, whether people can change what they put, whether you give them the ability to change or not. So on TripAdvisor, for instance, the example I gave you before about TripAdvisor, I couldn't go back and change it. Once you've submitted, it's submitted forever. There's no way of going back and changing what you've put. So that's a decision that you would need to take. So to finish off, workflow in IT and service management tools. A recent improvement is the capability to build, map, and manage process workflows dynamically within the products. And again, this is something I've used recently with a product that I used to create my website. And also you can create campaigns. So effectively, in the business I'm in of delivering training courses, it's quite common that people maybe give a certain amount of a training course away for free, and then maybe invite you to a webinar and then send you an email. And obviously at some point we're trying to get you to buy something. We're trying to get you to buy the exam code because we need to eat food and have a roof over our heads as well. but there's a process there, there's a sales process, and you can create it. The modern tools, you can literally just drag and drop and say, item A, item B, process A, process or step A, step B, step C. If this, then go back to step B. If this, then go on to there, and just in a very simple drag and drop format, which means that changes to workflow elements can be made by non-technical frontline individuals. So in that instance, your marketing manager or your marketing staff can create that workflow. You don't need programmers creating scripts or metadata or messing around with code in order to create it. The interfaces for these administration tools are usually designed in familiar process mapping formats with swim lanes, action boxes, decision points, parallel streams, and dependencies. And swim lanes, if you haven't come across them, it's just similar types of activities. So in the example I was talking about with marketing, you might have a swim lane which is emails, another swim lane which is webinars, and another swim lane which is portal maybe or website. And you put the different steps in the appropriate swim lane. So again, you can see how the process maps across. They reduce lead time for changes, as well as presenting the workflows in simple graphical formats. So again, we can all see, and again, looking at it and seeing where the holdups are, or the bottlenecks, or the waste. Okay, so that was collaboration and workflow. I hope you'll join me in the next video on robotic process automation. Until you see me again, have a great day.